Hello and welcome to today's podcast. I am very excited to introduce you to one of our VIP clients. This is Eileen. Eileen, tell us a little bit about who you coach and what you do.
Thank you for having me. So, I have a business where I coach women in preventing burnout, particularly women that are in leadership. So, how do you create the boundaries you need to run a team and still have a life and do the things that make you a great leader on stage as well as a great person in your family?
So I assume you must have had a story of your own that brought you to this coaching.
Yes, absolutely. So, I very much was a ambitious woman in my career. I'm an educator by trade, so I started out as a teacher, and about 10 years ago I became a professional coach in education. And as soon as I got promoted, it was so exciting, and the next thing I knew it was November and I was like, I am exhausted. I found a stack of notes where I'm like, I feel like I'm not keeping up with anything. I was a bad sibling and partner and friend, and it's like, okay, this can't be the case. So I've worked as a coach in that forum where I've been supporting others in instruction. And I was like, there has to be a better way. I work with all these incredible women in leadership, particularly principals, but it's like, how do we take care of ourselves so we can take care of others? Because that's something so many people enjoy doing, especially when they have a calling into leadership.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, I think everybody listening to this podcast could agree that they experience overwhelm, stress, anxiety, burnout. It's like it almost runs like it is our kind of standard mode of how we feel and how we experience our day to day, which is so pitiful, isn't it?
I think about this with my clients, like, how much longer can you say after this week things will get better? And it's been 6 months, 9 months, or 3 years, right? That is a story we constantly tell ourselves. But the reality is, it will never get less intense unless we create the boundaries and the rituals we need in order to take care of ourselves first, which is really hard for women to say, like, I have to be first on my list. And then I can tend to my family, my kids, my career.
Oh my gosh, it is true. It's like when I get this one thing done, then it's like in my mind, it's like I'm going to get this one thing done and then I'll be like over the hump. It'll be on to the next, like something big will be behind me. And so now all of a sudden there's going to be lots of extra time or something, which is for sure not true.
So I definitely seen myself as someone who was like, after this week, it's like, okay, I've been saying this for 3 months. This isn't working. What do I need to change? And it can start really small. Like, I'm committed to not checking my email after a certain time. I'm going to help my team understand what an emergency is. And so, like, what qualifies for like making the text or phone call at night. Some of it is, actually taking a lunch break. And what's really wild is the average person, if you're not taking a 30-minute lunch break, by the end of the year, you've accrued an extra 15 days of work that you've done because you sacrificed your lunch break to keep going.
Wow. And I mean, this isn't what you coach around, but since I'm guilty of this too, I have lunch break built into my schedule every day. But of course, probably just like most of you listening, we just work right through it. But also, what happens for me is I get to the end of the day and I'm like famished, right? So I'm sure that it really affects people's weight and everything else because they're like in the drive-through line. Luckily, I work at home, so I can't go to drive-through, but in the drive-through line on the way to work because they never even stopped. And which probably also means they don't feed their family well or anything. It's a cascade effect.
Absolutely. Or even, I think about some of the women that I coach, and I think about some of the things that they play on repeat over and over again is the afternoon meetings because they were short with a colleague, they were unclear. And it's like, well, of course, like by the end of the day, you made 100 zillion decisions. And so when 2:30 rolls around and somebody didn't do something they needed to do, you're frustrated and your ability to regulate your emotions is sacrificed.
So your ideal client, tell me like some of the roles that they would be so that anybody listening to this who has a sister, a girlfriend, whatever person in their life that is burned out, overwhelmed, overworking, has zero boundaries. I mean, I think it kind of describes all of us, but who is the person really that you would be best in supporting?
Yeah, so I really find that I'm set up well to support women who've started to like kind of arrive in their career. So if you've been telling yourself, like, once I get to this next place, everything's going to be better. And so often there are women who are running a team. I work with some principals. I've worked with women who are running big departments in manufacturing, folks that are running nonprofits. And so if you're running a team and you have a family, but you want to actually be present with your family versus somebody going like, hey, are you listening to me? Are you scrolling? Are you working? Are you listening to me? These are typically the women I work with because we can find a way to level up your leadership through modeling the boundaries and relinquishing some responsibilities to teammates or to your family to help you find some of those places where you could be in balance and present and feel successful in all dimensions of your life. So those are typically the women that I work with. So sometimes it looks like a CEO. Sometimes it's someone who's running their own business. Who's like, I love my business, but I'm working it feels like 8 days a week when there's only 7.
Yeah. So what do you think about self-care? Self-care feels like people think, oh yeah, right, I don't have time for that. Does your client actually identify if you said, come, let's make some space for self-care? Are they like, yeah, yeah, yeah? Or do they connect with that? Do they say, oh yeah, I want to do that?
They often are someone who's like, every year I've either made a resolution or it's the first quarter and they're like, I have to get it together. I have to take better care of myself. And it's really within the how that becomes the challenge for them. And so some of the things that we start to explore are their values. So what are your core values? What do they look like at home and in your work life or your business? And then it's thinking through, how do you actually need to rest? There's different ways that people can rest. And so it's like, is it actually unplugging? Is social rest with a girlfriend a way that recharges you? And so it's something we start to look at. And it's overwhelming. Like the idea of like, I need you to actually take care of yourself feels
Yeah.
impossible.
Yeah.
Right. And so it really starts for many of my clients, like, what is one thing you'll do for yourself in the morning that's 10 minutes or less? And so something I often talk about is like, let's stop having your coffee in your to-go mug. Like, sit and have that cup of coffee. You say you can't live without it. Like, let's give it the time and attention that it deserves. And so that starts the cascading of like pausing.
Oh my gosh, I love it. So you were inspired to become a coach, although you are a coach in your day job. Is that
Mhm.
correct? You were inspired to build a coaching business as well outside of your day job.
Yes, absolutely correct. So, the fact that I've coached for over 10 years, it's really made me see there's a couple of things that we always have to address in coaching. And it's really your behaviors, your beliefs that drive those behaviors, and then really the way you show up in the world. And so, whether it's working with someone on instruction, what's really great teaching for all kids, or thinking about how do I need to show up? How are my beliefs saying, like, well, if I have to do it, I can't possibly say I can't get this done. That dictates the way we're showing up in our world in the day-to-day life. And so I just really felt that there was a need for more women to have a space to kind of work through like, oh man, I had this performance review and I'm playing it on replay over and over again. Why am I doubting myself? Why am I feeling like an imposter? How can I do excellent work at work and be okay with that's enough, right? I don't have to keep sacrificing my quality of my life or my career, or how do I find some balance with my family? Like if you're the one who's always coordinating the appointments, the dog, the gardener, all the things, how might you think about sharing that load in a different way and not feel guilty about it, right? The guilt is the big thing that I see. So that's what really inspired me is like, you can have your amazing career and a life too.
So how are you doing that? How are you having your amazing day job? And how are you building a business? I think this is a lot of our people. They work full time, they have really incredible careers that actually they love, that they don't really intend on leaving, but also they're like, I want more. How are you balancing that in this scenario?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am really clear on like what are my must-dos during a day. And so like for me, in order to do things for myself, I always capitalize on first thing in the morning. So I'm an early riser. And so some of my best thinking would start first thing in the morning. And so in the program, when you kind of after you design your branding and those pieces, it's like, okay, now work on your website copy. And I was like, that seems like so hard, right? It was definitely a place where I did some overthinking. But it's like, you know what? I'm going to sit down for 45 minutes and I'm just going to crank this out. I'm going to answer all the guiding questions that I'm supposed to answer. And then being okay with that being enough. Like I have a team behind me. That's why I picked your team, is because you provide so much feedback. And so it was just carving out chunks of time strategically in the morning to get some things done. And then not sacrificing things at night in order to do that. So like I still signed off of work. I was really clear, like, hey, this is my week ahead at work. Here are the 2 or 3 pockets of time I can work on my business. And here's the time I'm spending with my family. I'm walking my dog. I'm doing yoga before I go to bed. And so it really was about prioritizing time and not overthinking. It's like, I'm just going to do the thing and keep going.
Overthinking. That's a good point because I do think when we talk to new clients and they're saying, well, how fast can I get my business built? And I might have said this on our consultation call. I'm like, I don't know. That's really up to you. We have a very clear path and we're available for you and we'll tell you what to do and we'll give you the feedback. But like it all comes down to making a lot of decisions and taking the action. So I'm just curious, maybe we should lay out what all you have accomplished during the time that you have worked with us. Start from the beginning. Were you clear about your niche?
No, so I actually had coached before online for weight loss. And so a lot of the things that I find myself coaching on for women in particular are around boundaries, self-care. What do you actually enjoy doing other than like looking forward to popcorn and Prosecco at the end of the day? There can be more in your life than that. And so I knew after a few years of that experience, I just didn't want to be in the business of telling women you should be changing yourself and some of the kind of slick marketing. Like, let's face it, weight loss is $1 billion industry for a reason, but I just didn't want to be part of that. Like, I was working with these highly educated women. I work with doctors and lawyers and CEOs. And it's like, yeah, you're so smart. I can't believe this is what you want to spend your time focusing on. And so I knew I wanted to do something around well-being for women. And then the more I really thought about it, it's like a lot of the women, we may not be using the word I'm burned out, but you're on the brink of it. You've been saying, you like we said earlier, oh, I just got to get through this week, or like once I get to September, or once this happens, or once I finish this project. We're always saying once something else happens. And it's been probably for, if we're honest with ourselves, probably for the last 5 years of your career as you were trying to get to the next level. And so that was something that took a little bit of time, but it's like, no, I'm really clear that I don't want to coach weight loss. And so the idea of preventing burnout seemed like the right fit for me because I think women are experiencing more stress than ever before. And that was something that I'm like, I feel like we can solve this. These are smart, amazing women. Let's figure this out.
So you came and you had this idea about your niche. Then the next thing you did was you worked on your branding.
It was really, the branding actually probably was my favorite part because when I coached under someone else's brand before, but mostly it was like, this is an extension of who I am. Like I can use my favorite colors. And it was funny because I definitely used like some deep royal purples, and clearly I'm wearing purple because it's the best color ever. But it was funny because I was like, it's a little dark. And I'm like, yeah, I don't care. Like that matters to me. This actually looks like me. Like you're never going to see me in pastels. Like that's not my style. And so that was something that was really fun. I was like, well, it'll be interesting when you lay it out on your website. It's like, we'll figure it out. But this is important to me. I have an art background too. So bold colors have always been part of just like the core of me. So that felt really authentic and congruent, which was super exciting.
I have to tell you guys, we'll leave Eileen's website link here, but she is right. When she showed me her colors, I was like, oh, and not that I don't love purple and not that I don't love black and love the strength of those colors, because I personally am drawn to those too. But I was like, I just don't know. The website needs to have a lot of white on it. It needs to be light. It needs to be. And I have to tell you, I keep showing that website, Eileen, you don't know this, but I keep showing that website to everybody because it is remarkable. It looks so good. And if you'd have told me you could have used that level of color and strength in it and that it would have come out to have turned out like that, I would not have believed that. And it is awesome. So you guys have got to go check out her website. Tell us what your website domain is so they can find you.
It's coach-eileen.com. And so you'll find just some really great colors. And I can't take full credit for the design. One of the most amazing things about the working with Debbie and her team is that like there's always someone who can help you take something to the next level. So Christine, I decided to hire her because I'm like, I have capacity to learn anything I want to. That was the other thing I think that's led to my success. I was also really clear. I'm like, and I'm not willing to learn that right now. Like I'm willing to build the business. I'm going to hire someone who's an expert to make the design piece look the way I would hope it would look. And mine would have never been nearly as beautiful without the support of your team and hiring that additional layer. And so that was something that's also really helped me. It's like, I'm willing to do all of these things. Here's where I can get help and be okay with it, which is something I teach my clients. It's like, where can you ask for help? Here. So
brilliant. Yes, ladies listening. I think that that's a super, super valid point. We spend so much of our time trying to learn something. And a lot of times, Eileen, they learn it and they do it. And then they're like, I need some help polishing this up still. So I love it that you just decided And look, it's a substantial investment to do all of this work. And the other thing that is so fantastic about you is you weren't afraid to invest in yourself. It's like betting on yourself. I'm always betting on me, not bet as in a risk, but I'm like, I'll invest in what it is I want to do. And you did that. And the outcome is fantastic.
Yeah. And I think it was just so fun to like when it came together, it was like, man, I'm so proud of how this looks and the way it reads, right? Because I definitely had some hangups. I'm like, I don't know if my message is clear. And you guys are like, oh, it's way better than you were giving yourself credit to. And so having Thais's feedback and your feedback and then putting it all together is like, oh, it all makes sense now. So it was super fun.
So then you got your website launched and you started showing up on social media.
Yep.
And fill in the blanks of what else you've done.
Yeah. So through that time, I think what was really helpful is you and I, when we did my copy, we kind of talked through pricing. And so I like settled on a number that I'm like, yeah, that feels fair and reasonable. And the more I was thinking about it, I was like, no, I'm going to charge more. And so I got super clear with that. And I was like, I'm going to charge more. I'm okay with that. And so I worked on my roadmap, got really clear on how I'm going to walk clients through, the self-coaching work that they need to have, the values and beliefs, recommitting to a new identity of someone who takes care of themselves, really thinking through letting go of perfectionism and people pleasing, which is a huge part of the work in order to have the balance and boundaries and the thriving career and thriving life. And so through that, I actually picked up some new clients, which is really exciting. And I messaged everybody, I was like, guess what? I signed a new client and at a different price because I decided I was going to charge more because I know this is worth it. Right. And so created even a bonus where it's like, we're actually going to do a deep dive 1 hour call. Here's all the pre-work. This is what the pre-work is going to look like when you show up for our coaching calls. Because something, having the expertise of coaching and leading and designing professional learnings for adults for a decade, it's like, I can use all of this in my business and be really clear on, as a client, you have to take the responsibility. I need you to put in the work and the reflections, and then I'm going to help you land on actions as you're moving forward. And so I've been coaching a client and it's been amazing. Within the last week, there was something that happened at work that could have been perceived as like a miss, right? And we were able to have some conversations in between our coaching calls and be like, is it actually a miss? Like, you're not losing any credibility at work, because there is some of that for a lot of my clients. They work so hard to get to this next level in their career. But for women, sometimes still having a seat at a table, often a lot of women I work with are in very male dominated industries too. There's the doubt, right? And it's like, no, like, you caught the miss, you can delegate this miss, and nobody's thinking anything less of you. You can be a top performer, but still take care of yourself.
So you have the confidence as a coach, but I'm curious how much the confidence in the business setup that you created while we worked together in the VIP coaching experience, how did that change you deciding, no, the value of what I have to offer with this particular client, and I sold my coaching at a higher price? How do you think that influenced, like, the brand image, the message, the roadmap that you designed, having a website that you felt comfortable and confident with? Did that play a role in you being able to say, oh no, I'm in business, this is what it cost?
I think absolutely. There was an element when I was looking for a business coach that I was drawn to with your branding. It was just polished and professional and clear, right? And so as I kind of put together, the website was clear on my offer, what we were going to coach on. And then also thinking about my investment. Like, anytime you take on a client, you're also mutually investing in them. I think that gave me the confidence to be like, no, like, I actually know women who need this. Most of the women, my girlfriends, my friends that I've been friends with forever, they need me in their life, and they get me for free because, we've been friends forever. But it's like, there are plenty of women that this is something you need. And most women, once you get over the hang up of taking care of yourself, or just a little bit of like, ooh, I'm going to spend this money, know that this is actually going to be life-changing for them, because I can help you find the answer to still loving your career or re-loving your career, because you've now put some boundaries and guardrails in place for you to have a great career and a personal life. Because why are you making six figures if you actually can't take a vacation?
Wow. So you're talking about the value of the coaching transformation you provided, but what you also said was the value of your time, that you should be well compensated, which is a different switch that sometimes people have. Mostly they're thinking about the value of the service that they deliver. They're not so much thinking about the value that they place. I mean, we're trying to get to an income goal, of course, but you've sort of presented that in a different way. That's interesting.
Yeah. And I think I sit in a really unique position in the sense that I love my job in education. I wake up every day. I enjoy the work I do. I see the impact I bring to the table. And so I'm not doing this to get out of my day job. Like a lot of professional coaches try to sell to people who aspire to be a coach. And that was something too for me when we met. I was like, no, she's fine with this. Like, I'm clear that I'm just not trying to make a 6-figure business. Like, sure, if that happened, great. But that's not my first goal. It's how can I help a pocket of women who are like me, who busted their tail to get where they are in their career and are like, oh, if I have another 6 months like this, I'm not going to make it. And they're never going to drop the ball at work, right? Because that's something they've worked so hard to, but they definitely drop the ball for themselves. And that's the problem I really wanted to end. And so because of that, I recognize the value in my time is extremely limited, but what I can do for you in 6 months will change your career trajectory because you'll be able to be present in your career, love it again, and love your life.
Oh my gosh, so good. I want to hire you, girl. You got it all figured out. It sounds amazing. So tell me just a couple of things about working with us again in the Business Building Boutique. You are a VIP client, and I want to talk to you guys, give you the backstory in that. What's interesting is that you've already heard Eileen works full time, and our coaching for the VIP is during the day. So she actually, I think, only came to 2 coaching calls. Is that right?
Yep, I definitely didn't really come to the calls. I was able to pop into a call because a meeting ended early and I was like, I have 15 minutes. Let me see if I can squeeze this in. And I was sitting in my car. And then the other time was on a snow day. So definitely didn't have a lot of space in my calendar to attend. And I knew that. Like, I knew that when I sat down with Debbie and I asked the questions I had. I'm like, I probably won't make it to many calls, but because you were willing to give me feedback on the work that I was doing, I was like, I can make this work. I trust myself to follow your roadmap to build your business and to get feedback where I need it on the critical points. So that for me was like a no-brainer. I was like, I know this is exactly what I want feedback on, and I'll just catch some replays when I can. And so that's what I've done. So sometimes those mornings that I spend a little bit of time, it's like clicking on the replay. I might turn the speed up because that's just a habit of me when I listen to any podcast or anything like that. But I'll be listening to some of the coaching because I can apply a lot of the same principles that you're coaching other women on to what I'm working on, because we all have a lot of the same questions.
Oh, that is so, so great. So is there anything you want to share that you haven't touched on maybe about the Business Building Boutique? I know you've spent some time with Thais too. Thais's mindset coaching is magical.
Amazing. One, I think you offer so much more than you even are prepared for when you first sign up. The community within the Facebook group, and even I had them, I'm like, oh man, I got to get on Facebook again. Social media, that part of social media has never been my favorite on at least Facebook side. But like, there are tons of women in the program. Well, not tons, but there's a handful of women in the program. But what's so cool is because everybody's worked on niching down. It's not like any of these other life coaches are your competition. They're really your allies and support. And so I've been able to build relationships with a few of the women through Instagram and on Facebook, where I'm like, hey, I didn't come to a call. Can I run this idea by you real quick and just have a dialogue, and built some friendships that way. And that's actually how I found you, was through somebody who is already in Business Building Boutique. So that was pretty cool. And then I think just being able to see some people when they post their ideas in Facebook for review, you're like, oh, I think I could do something like that, but I'm going to put a spin on it. Or, hey, does anybody have a welcome packet? I'm kind of like overthinking this. And the women in the program are like, here, you can use mine. I just linked this here. Check this out. And so it actually provides this robust resource from colleagues and peers and friends to get even further in what you're trying to work through. So that's been really fun as well. And then having the mindset coaching call with Thais is phenomenal because it challenges just any of those barriers you might be overthinking. Or you can be like, hey, can you thought partner with me real quick since I have you live real fast on this idea that I have? And so something I'm working on now is, for one of my freebies will be, my first workshop is really 4 ways to reinvent your week. And so how you can de-stress in this 4 simple steps across the next work week. You know, and some of that looks like, how do you reschedule? Yeah, an invite is, you can always propose a new time. It's on our calendar invites. We just never do it. So let's learn how to be comfortable making those actions happen for yourself.
Interesting. Well, thank you for mentioning that about the Facebook group, because it is true. And I probably don't even talk about the Facebook group because I do sort of in my mind, I hear that wah, 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 it's like, oh, another Facebook group. And people feel like it's just a lot of work. But I'll tell you what, in our group, these ladies are building businesses and they are posting what they're doing. And honestly, we don't provide official accountability, but there's just a sense of accountability because you're like, uh-oh, so-and-so's doing all this stuff. Like you want to be part of the energy of what is going on there because there's a lot of people are doing it. They're getting their business built. They're talking to people. They're learning. They're growing.
Absolutely. Like you can, if you have a tech glitch too, you can be like, hey, has anybody run into this on this? And like somebody immediately can respond like, oh, if you click here, do this, or send me what your screen is saying. And they'll walk you through some of those just kind of odd duck sort of things that happen along the way as a solo business owner, right? You're like, I can't learn it all, but it felt like a safety net of people who had your back, which is also really exciting.
When we come to coaching, sometimes people don't have very many questions actually on our coaching calls. And since you've listened to the replays, sometimes I'm like, you guys, one person has a question and we're here for an hour. What do you want me to talk about? Let me fill the time here. And I think to myself, why does nobody have any questions? And Thais, our mindset coach, is always coaching me around the fact that, Debbie, they got all their questions answered. Number one, from the directions that you already gave them in the roadmap guidebook and from the education you provided them. And number two, we answer their questions in the Facebook group every day of the week. So the fact that they don't have questions is a good thing. And I'm like, okay, it is interesting that people just manage without ever asking questions. I mean, yeah. So.
Well, and I think like being someone who I knew signing up, I wasn't going to be at many calls, but like I just made time, like I'm going to watch, here's step one. I'm going to watch the video. Okay, it's on me. I can do the thing. Like I'm going to watch section 2. I'm going to do the thing and just kind of working through that. Everything is so proactively taught that it's very easy to do. So it helps, I think, remove the fear of like, I don't know where to get started. You're like, do these 5 things. And you're like, oh, I did the 5 things. This is amazing.
Yeah. So for somebody who's listening and they're like, I don't know, I work full time. I can't take one more coaching program. I've already bought this and it didn't work. Had you bought a bunch of coaching programs?
No, I interviewed like 4 people that I scouted online. And I say that honestly, like I was interviewing you to see if you're a good fit for where I wanted to invest my money. And then like I watched people's accounts. So it's like, how are you showing up on social media? And is that congruent with the professional woman that I am in my day job that I want to bring to coaching? So one person, we had a consultation call and she took the consultation call in the car. And I was so like personally offended by it. And she's like, this is what's so great about having a business. And I'm like, you're asking me to spend thousands of dollars and you're in your car. Like that doesn't work for me. And then like some of the other people had very much the like, I can get you to make this money, but they had like the influencer vibe. And I'm like, I'm just like a regular gal who works really hard, who wants to help other women still work hard, but without sacrificing their sleep, without being resentful when you go to work because you have one more project, and so really helping. So that was why I was like, I think Debbie's the one for me. And I talked to a couple of my girlfriends who I met when we were all coaching, and they're like, you know who you're going to go with. And I was like, they're like, it's Debbie. And it's funny because I'm like, they all know me so well because I would send them like different links from all the people I was looking at. So
I love it. I did not know that you really went through that much exploration. Now, I have to say that's what I do too. I just hired a new coach yesterday and I've spent since April 17th looking, talking to people, researching, same thing. So I'm like that. I want to really find the person that I feel like is the best bet. And look, sometimes you get it wrong. I mean, sometimes we do hire the wrong people and that's just building a business. So for somebody who is not sure, can I do this? What is your advice to them? Not about working with me, but just about working full time and also starting, this stepping into what they're hoping to do, this new career.
I think my answer is always absolutely. Wondering if you can't do it, that's your own self-doubt. That's your own lack of confidence, right? But in a year from now, or 5 years from now, are you going to want to look back on your life and say, oh, I wish I would have given my own online coaching business a try? Or are you going to look back like, oh, I tried it. I loved it. It worked out great. Or I tried it. I didn't actually love it. It wasn't for me. And so I'm good with what I'm doing. How do you want to look back on your life? What regrets do you want to have? And, I always think about it as I would rather look back and be like, I went for it and it didn't work out. And I'm okay with that. That I went for it and it worked out, or I didn't even try. Right. And so I think it's you absolutely can do it. You have to have some time management for sure. And you have to be pretty committed to doing something for yourself. But I think if those things are in place for you, absolutely can. I think if you're looking for a coach to help you run your business, like make sure their coach model has an opportunity to mentor you in the style that you're looking to present yourself to the world. Because if you're looking for like an outlandishy Instagram influencer, like you can find plenty of those coaches. But if you're looking for someone who is down to earth and is similar with your vibe, like that's going to be really important, I think, to your success, because people really buy from a coach because of who they are and what they offer, as well as what their package is. So,
yeah. And really, you have our word boutique is about building a business that's meaningful, that is professional looking, one that, you feel really good about saying to people, hey, come check me out. One that you can confidently talk about where you're really doing some meaningful work in the hours that you have available, where you're making a difference. You really are doing what it is that I want people to do, which is to have a boutique style business. And yes, again, making a lot of money is super fun and it is part of it. But I think the bigger part of it is doing something that is very meaningful and fulfilling, something that you're proud of that really is your own. And you're doing that so well.
well, thank you. Yeah, it's kind of funny. People are like, well, when do you coach? And like at 6:30 in the morning. And they're like, are you sure? And I was like, this is really important to me. So it's one of the first things I do during the day. Like I'd obviously consider it in an evening if that was something a client maybe needed, but I have pretty clear times. Like these are the days of the week that I coach. These are the days that I have my consult calls, and that works for me. And it's about investing my time in the way that I want to feel fulfilled, right? There's a lot of fulfillment when you're coaching others and you get to be part of their journey and their growth, because you're setting someone up to have everything that they really wanted. And that feels really inspiring.
So good. Well, all right. Is there anything else you want us to know about you or about the work that you've done with us? Anything, you fill us in.
I would definitely say I wouldn't be at this place without the business building boutique. I think that I would have spun my wheels for so much longer in a different setup. I think that having the peer support has been amazing, but just the support with technology and the website. And so I think even being able to like catch your podcast in between things, I'm like, okay, what is Debbie talking about this week? Okay, I definitely need to listen to this. Okay. So there's just tons of support. And without it, I think I would have just been like, I sort of have a business on an Instagram platform, but that wouldn't have been what I wanted my business to look like. So being able to build a website that I was proud of really set the tone of like, here's what I have to offer. This sounds like something you need. Great. Let's have a conversation. And so that has felt really great for me. And I'm excited to see where things go. I know that I'll acquire more clients over time and things will keep heading in a really positive trajectory for me.
Yeah. And hosting the workshop, I'm excited to see how that unfolds. I mean, you know how I feel about education. I love that, helping people understand again from, hey, this isn't just one more person who says have some self-care. And this isn't one person who says you should manage your time better. What you have to offer is so significantly different. And helping them understand that through a workshop will be fantastic. So
yeah, absolutely. I think it's, getting the chance to help people peel back their own layers within themselves to understand their actual needs. And when you're having emotions, when you're frustrated, I'm like, those are all signals to tell you, like, you're spread too thin. Now let's figure out what we need to put in place for that. So,
okay. So if somebody wants to connect with you to get your support, where and how do they do that? And of course, we'll leave the links in the show notes, and you can find also on our Instagram where we'll have connection for her. But tell us right now how they'll connect with you.
Yep. You can either go to my website, which is coach-eileen.com, or find my Instagram profile, which is Eileen__coach.
Okay. That sounds so amazing. Gosh, thanks for picking me for doing the homework and finding me and then interviewing me. And I'm so glad I passed, because you've been a joy to work with. And I'm so glad I get to show off what you created, because honestly, it is top notch. So thanks for investing your money with me too. I really appreciate it. So, all right, you guys have an amazing day. Until next week, we'll see you then. Bye-bye.